Hey everyone, it's POW Ponder Weather. We have a very active setup taking place over the next 7 to 10 days. So let's break down the details for you and start off with the overall storm reports from last night because, man, those storms were really packing a punch up there in the panhandle of Texas. In fact, Memphis, Texas reported 114-mile-per-hour wind gust. And so far, these are very preliminary. Up to 9 tornadoes reported from last night. With all the surveys that still need to be taking place, you be sure that number is going to be going up. But man, those had moved across with very intense winds, 70, 80, 90 miles per hour at times across much of Oklahoma and portions of Missouri. Now today, that system is over portions of Illinois. It's actually bringing some snow going to be flying towards the noon time frame back in those same regions that got a lot of ice. So they are going to be impacting with some more ice in some of those regions into central Wisconsin, as well as into portions of Michigan. And we have another bona fide low pressure center. It's still down to a 983 millibar low. Very intense winds around that low pressure center. And in fact, we've got more severe storms that look to unfold today. The Storm Prediction Center does in fact have a slight risk for severe storms headed into this afternoon in portions of central Illinois, central Indiana, as well as much of Ohio. In fact, those could be also packing some pretty intense winds of maybe some 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gust at times. And you can't rule out an isolated tornado or two in this region, especially in and around Ohio, as that storm system will be maximizing later on this afternoon into the early evening time frame. There's the overall hazard map. Man, it is lit up. All the winds that took place over much of the central states yesterday, that has now subsided. But now all that has shifted off into portions of Arkansas through Tennessee, all the way into Kentucky, right around that low pressure center. You saw the tight isobars. So definitely a lot of wind advisories taking place in this region of some 50, 60, maybe some 70 mile per hour wind gust at time. There's that snowstorm with newly warned winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up there in Wisconsin, with more heavy snow for them moving into portions of Michigan. But also for the Northeast, they're finally going to get in the action. Some of these areas are going to be picking up their biggest snowfall of the season for a lot of these areas into Pennsylvania. And that's not saying much, folks. I know Central Park's only got maybe a half inch of snow all year long. So even a couple inches for them is definitely the biggest snowstorm of the season. But the good thing is we got a lot more on the table heading into March, as well as we have another bona fide storm system coming off the West Coast. Newly blizzard warnings taking place and right around the Mammoth Lakes area, that some of those locations picked up 8 feet of snow just with the last snowstorm. And we got a lot more snow heading that way. So it's been very active in California. But look at the snow. I mean, look at the latest high resolution guidance. Some of these areas could in fact overperform. And then what it looked like yesterday, most guidance here lately all winter has been trending down. This has actually been trending up. So things are changing, guys. Things are changing in a big way. So this storm right here between now and say Tuesday night is going to lay down a blanket of snow. That's where they have that winter storm warnings up here in the portions of northern Wisconsin here, heading into northern Michigan. But definitely some bona fide snow amounts into portions of Pennsylvania, northern portions of Jersey, getting into Rhode Island, could pick up 4, maybe 6, maybe 7 inches in Providence, Rhode Island. Even Central Park, New York City has upped the ante and maybe pick up 3 to 5 inches from this system. So definitely a good sight to see that's been desperately needing some snowfall up in this region. But the good thing is, there's a lot more on the table for where this came from heading into next week. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather updates on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my detailed weather reports on this channel. And it's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. And if you're in the market for a weather station, I highly recommend the Tempest Weatherflow weather station. It's the one I've actually had personally for about 3 years. It's designed for about 25 different meteorologists out there. Have a convenient app, but it's all solar. It takes 10 minutes to install. In fact, you can use my discount code to get 10% off and free shipping at checkout. You can use this link below And I'll have a clickable link in the description so you can click on it and actually order one for yourself. But out west, like I mentioned, there's another bona fide storm system coming in off the west coast. That system already has major, if not extreme, impacts in a lot of these regions up in the mountains. Additional, they already had 8 feet, guys. Now they have another 4 to 7 feet. So the tremendous amount of water that's impacted the west coast from those 9 atmospheric river events. Now this system that came through, now this other system that comes through in the next couple of days has been really making a major dent in the drought and picking up all the reserves. And once all this snow melts, it's going to be a game changer. And man, a lot of these areas maybe not even actually experience a drought by the time all this snow melts as we get deeper into the spring. But this is definitely a good sign to see all the precipitation entering the west coast, and even down here in the desert southwest could have some minor to major impacts with some heavier snows into higher elevation and more rain along the coast impacting. They had a lot of, I think one report actually had 11 inches of rainfall along the coast just from that last storm, and we have more on the table. So as we head into Wednesday, here's the setup by your noon time frame as we kick off March. So we'll have that, that system coming in off the west coast, bringing more snow for the interior regions, more rain for the west coast, and another pretty significant low pressure center trying to form down here into the Four Corners region with some heavier snows again down to a 999 millibar. You can actually see this spokes of precipitation trying to lift back up here into the warm sector in the southern plains. That's an indication that moisture levels are returning. The southwest winds are really going to be cranking up these temperatures out ahead of this next system, while we have another little clipper system that's going to be coming across the northern tiers of more little bit lighter snows for that region. But yes, as we get into Thursday afternoon, that's where things get bumpy again, because this vorticity really starts to dig, and in fact it goes negatively tilted, and that's not a good sign, as this southwest winds will really be cranking, pulling in all that heat. You've got several days to come where all these areas are going to be well into the 70s, if not in the 80s. Downhill will be tapping into a bona fide dry line again. And that will be setting the stage for more severe storms. Unfortunately, this one looks like a pretty significant event, especially for east of the I-35 corridor. I don't think you'll have the cap to save you from this one, as things look to explode into the 5-6 o'clock time frame right along mainly east of the I-35 corridor down to a 988 millibar, as we got very intense winds. We'll be packing a punch into eastern portions of Texas, right around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, eastern Oklahoma, and these will shift off into Arkansas and portions of Louisiana, while we've got colder air filtering in on the backside. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center is already looking at a severe weather outbreak possible from this initial setup, as this storm system will be coming in and out of the Four Corners regions and really tapping into this warm sector. So they do in fact already have a slight risk for storms essentially east of the I-35 corridor. Will actually impact the Houston area this time, heading into East Texas as they intensify into the Arklatex region, heading into portions of Mississippi, and those will continue into Alabama. So it's definitely a bumpy ride as a severe weather outbreak looks to unfold around the southern sector, southeast sector, and that will continue to shift off further east. I thought we might be able to get some help with the cold front. Here's the latest update from the NAM. This is about 6 o'clock. So you notice about 6 o'clock, we're still into the warm sector for much of Oklahoma and much of Texas. That spells trouble, guys, because we're not going to be getting any help from this cold front, as we'll have plenty soup, as that low-level jet will be right over these areas. And that's my concern, of areas that probably will get expanded. And this could actually turn into more of a moderate risk further into the Dixie Alley, and maybe that the enhanced risk shifted further west to include more of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and more of Oklahoma. So it definitely looks like, unfortunately, a big event and a multi-day punch, 2-day punch, as this system will be moving across. So as we get into your Friday time frame, that continues to move across, and those areas will be impacting portions of Georgia by then, getting into the Carolinas and portions of eastern portions of Tennessee. So you got the southern flank will be definitely, soupy, warm. You got, this is springtime, folks. We're getting into prime time severe weather season now. We've had some pretty active times in January. We've had some active times in February, but March is definitely an active month on the severe weather front. So it's definitely starting off with a vengeance, but there's also a cold side to this. So I showed you the name with that cold front coming through on the backside of that powerful upper level low. It's definitely going to be bringing out some snow showers. So don't be surprised to get some more snows into portions of New Mexico, into portions of Kansas here, into the Texas Panhandle. This is on the backside of the system, into the overnight hours on Thursday night, heading into Friday morning. Into Oklahoma, can't even roll out some wet snowflakes in and around along the Red River here. But as this continues to push through the Missouri Valley, through portions of Illinois and Indiana, this is your 24-hour, snows between Thursday morning and Friday morning. So a pretty good swath of snows should be kind of breaking out in this region as this will continue to move across onto the cold side if you're northwest of that upper level low. And before that, we got to be concerned about more ice filtering in back in the picture in portions of Pennsylvania, as well as into West Virginia, maybe back into the DC area, especially into getting into Friday afternoon, Friday night time frame before in the backside. You kick in with all snow, but this should be a fairly good snowfall event for portions that haven't really seen much snow. Things are changing with the La Nina. We're finally saying goodbye with the La Nina, so things are shifting in the overall weather setups and these weather patterns. You're finally going to get areas that haven't really seen much snow. Now you're going to get in the action with this snowfall. So areas and portions of central Indiana, getting into Ohio, especially more snows heading back into the Northeast, adding to those totals where you really haven't seen much snow so far this year, but you will, especially by that Friday, Saturday morning system as this moves across. Here's the latest European update over that 24-hour total from Friday morning to Saturday morning. Some pretty good snows on the northwest side of that low. So again, you have that severe weather further to the south, but if you're on the northwest side of there, you're in that deformation zone where you can really be cranking out the snowfall up here into Indiana, getting into Ohio here, into Pennsylvania. Look at all that snow heading up into New England, into the Northeast. Double-digit totals could unfold just within those 24 hours. So I showed you the snow, and from that first event on Tuesday, this is more snow for Friday morning through Saturday morning. So definitely we'll be looking at some fairly good snowfall totals, and by far the biggest snows of the season up here into the Northeast. And it's all compliments of we can finally say goodbye to the La Nina. We've been dealing with this for 3 years, guys. It's been like a broken record. We've been talking about this La Nina since May of 2020, and finally we're getting the westerlies moving back in. Look at that lift up there into the equatorial Pacific. This is the last 7 days of that very warm waters filtering into this region where they've had extremely cold waters. That typically activates the subtropical jet. That's why you're seeing more of California getting wet. You're starting to see more of the southern regions starting to get wet, and you're starting to see more systems come across, but actually move up into the eastern seaboard. So things are changing in a big way, and we don't really have much left with this La Nina. It might have another week, if that. But definitely by the middle of March, we won't be talking La Nina again. We'll be talking more of the Enzo neutrals type setup. But unfortunately, with that transformation from a La Nina to an Enzo, those years are typically more active on the severe weather front. So I am expecting a more active storm season in the spring. We've already had one for the winter, but I am expecting a very active storm season because of that aspect. So let's take a look at the overall rainfall totals just over the next 7 days. Like I mentioned, we've got another significant system coming in off the west coast with more beneficial rains, especially along the coastal regions. It's been a while since you've seen something like this week after week with beneficial rains hitting off the West Coast, and it just doesn't end there. It's a lot for the desert Southwest, places into Nevada, getting into the Four Corners region, down here into Arizona, into Utah, portions of New Mexico, even into Colorado. But then that new swath of very heavy rain, heavier precipitations moves through the Tennessee Valley, through Kentucky, all the way up into Ohio Valley, getting into the mid-Atlantic states and into portions of New England and into the Northeast with some pretty significant precipitation amounts and the snow. So here's the blend. This is the blend of the snowfall totals between now and Sunday. So this is definitely a good sight to see if you've been missing out on the snow. And this is more of your conservative look right now because this is the blend of all the models. But a good swath of snow should inundate a good portion of Illinois, into Indiana, Ohio, but especially as you head into, upstate New York, into Pennsylvania. I mean, upstate New York, you're talking at least a foot of snow, if not more, this week alone. And then heading into areas of Massachusetts and Connecticut, into Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, back into Maine. Definitely some at least foot totals, if not more. I wouldn't be surprised some of these areas could come away with almost 2 feet of snow by the time we punch the timestamp, by the time we head into, Sunday night time frame. But beyond that, here's the breakdown for the next 7 days as far as the temperature anomaly. So much of the cold is out west right now. So you got trough after trough coming in with the P&A negative. That's going to put all the alignment of the much well below average temperature anomalies. We still got the southeast ridge trying to hang on, right? We got a cold front coming in behind that system on Thursday night, heading into Friday. So yes, between the next 7 days, much of this, average is going to be above average, but it flips going into next week. So most of the people are off on spring break next week for a lot of areas across the country. It's going to be a chilly week. We got colder air filtering in. You won't have the southeast ridge to play with anymore. That's something you have not seen in a long time as more cold air filters in. And not only does it filter in, it pushes east. So you've been locked under these, ridging for most of the winter. This is a bona fide setup for more snowstorms or the Ohio Valley, into the mid-Atlantic, into the Northeast. And especially if you take a look at the overall height anomalies heading into next week, it's a steady stream, guys. So you snow lovers, get ready, because you got plenty of snow on the table, not for just this week, especially heading into next week, as we have a very active setup look to unfold. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.